But for today, I'm very excited. Today's presentation is titled Data Completeness in Preparation for the Public Research Dataset. And my colleague John Britt has been kind enough to come in and highlight some NEMSIS dashboards and other analytic tools that are used to identify the trends and detect potential missing data elements. John is the data missingness guru here, and so we're very excited to have him here. At the very end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer session. So if you have a question, you can utilize the question and answer feature here in Zoom. In Zoom, throw the question in there, and then we will post it into the answered section, and John will answer it from there. Also, at the end, if you raise your hand and I can identify who you are, if it's too complicated to get your question into chat, we will unmute you so you can ask your question. I think that's everything. John, are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Perfect. Take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon for those of you in the East Coast like me. I'm very happy to be here, and I appreciate you taking out the time out of your day to join me. So we will be talking about record completeness, and this training will be done in two parts. The first part will be a hopefully painless death by PowerPoint. The second part will be a live demonstration on how to use two of our dashboards and to export data to help create some of your own analytic tools to be able to analyze your own data. I do apologize. My voice is a little scratchy this morning. Because of that, I am using an AI voiceover for the PowerPoints. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to make it through the entire training with my voice. So without further ado here, we'll start with the PowerPoints, and then from there, we'll go on to the online training or the online dashboard overview.
This training focuses on record-level data completeness. Specifically, we are looking at what EMS records are generated by agencies, what records are ultimately received.
Sorry about that. I did want to point out before we started, the sound is a little low, so you may want to turn up your volume throughout the PowerPoint, but then turn it down so I don't yell at you. Sorry, we'll restart now.
At the national level and where records may be lost along the way. This discussion is framed for state leadership and focuses on coverage, visibility, and decision-making, not individual data elements or field-level errors. Record-level completeness matters because it directly affects how a state is represented in national EMS data. Incomplete data can distort trend analysis, weaken policy evaluation, and reduce confidence in decisions based on the data. It also affects credibility with federal partners, researchers, legislators, and peer states. In short, completeness influences both what the data shows and how much the data is trusted. At the record level, a complete EMS record is one that successfully moves through the entire data pipeline. The record must be created by an EMS agency, submitted to the state, pass state validation, be accepted by NEMSIS, and be included in the National Research Dataset. If a record fails at any point in that process, it is not considered complete from a national perspective. Completeness is therefore about end-to-end success, not perfection at any single step. Data completeness should be viewed as a pipeline issue rather than a single checkpoint. Records can be lost during record creation, agency submission, state processing, national submission, or dataset inclusion. Because there are multiple handoffs, completeness depends on systems, workflows, and coordination across organizations. This means leadership influence exists at many points in the process, not just during validation. Entire records are commonly lost for procedural reasons rather than field-level data quality issues. Records may never be closed or finalized. Submissions may fail. Files may be rejected at the state level. A new agency demographic file may be missing, or submissions may be too late to be included in the National Research Dataset. In many cases, records are not explicitly rejected by NEMSIS. They are simply never received. Not all missing records represent the same level of concern. At a high level, record-level missingness falls into 3 categories: expected missingness, systemic missingness, and silent missingness. These categories help distinguish between normal gaps, fixable process issues, and high-risk situations where records disappear without detection. Expected missingness includes situations where records are legitimately absent, often due to state rules or operational realities. Examples include non-transport encounters, canceled calls, and mutual aid incidents handled elsewhere. When these records are sent, NEMSIS will accept them. The key is that expected missingness is understood and accounted for, so it does not surprise leadership. Systemic missingness is more concerning because it reflects patterns rather than isolated events. This may include entire agencies missing, commonly due to a missing demographic file. It can also appear as sudden drops after software updates or as errors in export settings. If identified early, these issues can often be fixed and files can be resubmitted. If a state is changing software vendors, timing matters because files can be lost once support from the prior company expires. Silent missingness presents the highest risk to data completeness. In these cases, records are assumed submitted but never received by NEMSIS. Agency counts may not match state totals, and states do not know what they do not know. This lack of visibility is why NEMSIS started the Missingness Project. Missing records do more than reduce data volume. They can change the story the data tells. Incomplete data can skew call volume trends, create misleading regional comparisons, and produce inaccurate policy evaluation. It can also weaken research findings and reduce support for grants and funding decisions. State EMS data is used by many external audiences. These include federal partners, researchers, legislators, the media, and the public, and peer states. Confidence in downstream analysis depends on confidence in coverage. Unexplained gaps reduce trust, even when the records that are present are high quality. States can monitor record-level completeness using a small number of high-level indicators. These include expected versus received record counts, year-over-year comparisons, agency participation rates, and sudden submission drop-offs. These measurements do not need to be complicated. The goal is early detection and awareness, so issues can be addressed before they become long-term gaps. A single completeness percentage can be misleading. A stable coverage rate may be acceptable even if it is not perfect. Sudden changes, however, often signal underlying issues that require attention. Trend monitoring helps leaders know when to ask questions and where to investigate. State leadership plays a critical role in improving record-level completeness. Leadership can influence submission expectations, consistency of enforcement, realistic submission timelines, and clear definitions of completeness. These levers shape behavior and prioritization across agencies and vendors. In many cases, leadership alignment has more impact than technical fixes alone. Completeness improves when gaps are visible. Volume reconciliation reports, agency-level summaries, early warning indicators, and vendor-neutral metrics all support transparency. When stakeholders can see where records are missing, problems are addressed faster and with less blame. Visibility turns completeness into a manageable operational metric. In most states, communication is more effective than enforcement alone. Early outreach, shared definitions, predictable feedback cycles, and collaborative problem solving lead to more sustainable improvement. Clear communication prevents confusion and helps agencies and vendors correct issues before records are lost. Record level completeness is about coverage, not perfection. Missing records usually indicate process gaps, not individual failures. You cannot manage what you cannot see. Trustworthy analysis starts with completeness. As you reflect on this information, consider where records may be disappearing in your data pipeline. Also consider which trends would concern you most as a state leader. These questions help focus attention on prevention and visibility rather than reaction.
And lastly, all of this leads to the research data cutoff date, which is next week, I believe, February 13th, 2026. So don't break our hearts, submit your data. That's been our slogan this year, and we really do appreciate everyone's hard work in getting us your data and making sure that it is as complete as possible. So I'm going to exit this slideshow. And you see my reminder. And I'm going to share my other screen. So before we get started, I see, oh, sorry, Judy Whitfield said, yes, I apologize for the video or for the audio on this. That's something we'll work on next time. You may want to turn your volume down now that I'm speaking because it might be a little bit louder. So I'm hoping that everyone is seeing the NEMSIS homepage now. If you're not, please somebody let me know. So what I want to show you, this should be a review for most state data managers, but if it's not, and you need further instruction, please reach out to me. I would be happy to spend some time with you going through dashboards and how to use them. I do reviews on some V3 calls as well, but I'm going to show you two of the most valuable dashboards that we have for tracking calls. So we'll start at the NEMSIS homepage. We'll go to View Reports, and this is for state data managers primarily because they're the ones who have access to state reports. And then we'll go to State Reports, the NEMSIS Dashboards, and go all the way to the bottom. We're going to start with the version 3 state data submissions. When you click that, it'll take you through your Okta process, and you'll end up looking at something like this. Now, I'm using the state of North Carolina because James has given me permission to do that. I can show you that, and I can show you the all, which is everybody. But what you see here is failed submissions. So this is the hard number of submissions that failed versus the number of submissions for this report period. Active agencies are the number of expected agencies over the number of agencies that submitted. And the PCR warnings, that's the number of PCRs that had warnings and the number of warnings per PCR divided by the number of PCRs submitted. So in this case, there were 240,380 records submitted year to date. And for this reporting period, these are the days that they were submitted. So this is the overall email summary. One thing I want to show you about this is if you've not already done it, go to the very bottom of the page if you're an EMS data manager and go to Watch and Subscriptions. Include this view, email summary, change this to when data refreshes, and then hit subscribe. And then you will get an email every week that shows you this data. You don't have to log in or anything. It'll just show it to you. Also in this report, we're going to start with the submission detail. For North Carolina, these are the calls that were submitted the last 2 weeks. These are the calls that failed, and it tells you why. This is the most common reason why calls fail is a because of no demographic agency associated with the PCR, which means there's no DEM file. Well, we know that there was 213 of them that failed. So we can then go to the agency detail. And it'll show us exactly the agency numbers that tried to submit records to us, but we don't have DEM files for them, so we could not accept them. So all you need to do, the state data manager, we need to reach out to these agencies and ask them to submit a DEM file, and sometimes they can do it for them. It depends on the vendor that they're using and the vendor that the agency is using. So once that's done, once the DEM file is submitted, it takes about 72 hours for it to populate within the NEMSIS system, and then we'll start accepting their files. Here's the catch. We also would like for you to go back to the time where this agency started submitting files, whenever that was. It could be back as far as a year from today's date, and resubmit all the files that failed. So there was 227 total failures this time. So we won't get those files unless they're resubmitted. So that's the piece that most of the people miss, and we catch when some of the things we've been catching when we've been doing our data missingness project is that very important last step of resubmitting the data that we hadn't been getting. Just to show you the last tab in this report, this is the submitted by agency information. Except the PCR information. So this will tell you the PCR failures by element, warnings by agency, and the number of units notified by date and time. One of the things I didn't realize is that for a long time, that you can slide down and there's more information on this report. You can get the actual schematron warning messages, and you can export these, and I'll show you how. And you can also get the schematron patterns that's causing the failures or warnings, and also how particular vendors are doing with their warnings per call. All very useful information for tracking down missingness and how your calls are getting transmitted to us. The next one that I want to show you is the current composition of the warehouse. And when you click on this, it'll take you through your Okta account as well. But thanks to the magic of the internet, I've already got it. If you're a state data manager, it'll automatically open with just your state showing. I've changed the date range from January 1, 2024, and that should be to 12/31/2025. And it's not liking that for some reason. There we go. Nothing like doing something live. There we go. So as with all Okta, there's almost always drill downs. So if we go by this date, this little plus will show up. It'll take you to the next drill down, which is quarters. Then there's the next drill down, which is months. But there's another drill down too, by the state. So now we have all of the agencies by quarter and month from the year 2024 to 2025. And this is a great report, but we can do more with it. My favorite tool is Excel. You can use other tools as well. But one of the most powerful things with Tableau is the ability to download these reports. So let's download this one as a crosstab. So now it's open in Excel. For this purpose, just to make things simpler, I'm going to remove these two rows. And I would typically go back in and put a date like 2024 January, 2024 February through, and then 2025. Just to save time, I'm not going to do that now. Just name that row agency ID. And let's get rid of this entire column because we know if we're a data manager, we know it's all our state. So what can we do from here? There's some really quick things we can do. So if we select all of the data, I use Control-Shift-End to quickly get to the end of the data. Then go format as table. So now we have this formatted as table. And while I have this highlighted, I'm also going to go to Home and do some conditional formatting. Let's do some highlight cell rules. Let's do less than one call so that if an agency didn't have any calls at all, it'll show up in this nice pink. So we've got this pink, and this shows that this agency, I don't know what agency it is, had one call here in the month of January, one call in February, then none March through March of the next year. Then all of a sudden they had 3 calls. Then they had nothing. Well, that's an unusual pattern. So that's something I would probably want to look at as a state data manager, because that tells me that they're still in business, but for some reason they're just not sending us calls. Maybe since they only had one call in those 2 months, maybe they're a quick response agency and they only do one call a month some months. I don't know, but it's something we'd want to look at. Same goes here. There was one call, then 4, 12, 51, 95. So it tells me that these 2 sections is a pattern that's missing, or missing and something I'd want to look at. So these are the calls that are in the warehouse today, February 2nd, 2026, or February 3rd, 2026, excuse me. These numbers will change the next time you download this document. And there's no way in our dashboard to go back and get the data that was here during the last report period. So if you want to be able to track changes by agency, you'll need to download this file every week after it updates so that you can track your changes yourself. That's just not something that we can do with our current dashboards. So you can do this for this week, and then when it updates next week, you could run this exact same report and then compare them with this one to see if maybe they're just running late and they did submit all of their files. Or for December, this one submitted 158, but that's not all of their calls for December because we're still just barely in February and they may have submitted some late calls. So this is one way of exporting this. I'm going to go back to our Tableau and show you one thing that I should have mentioned a little bit earlier. I always run these reports by unit notified by dispatch as the reference date. That's the day that the ambulance, first responder, fire truck, whoever submitted this call, that's the date that they received it. That's the date they were dispatched to the call. That date should never change. The other reference date is a submission date. And this is a useful report as well, but this just tells you how many reports were submitted on a specific day and time. It doesn't tell you what date the calls were actually accomplished or run. It just tells you that in October of 2024, this agency submitted 55 calls, but they may have run those calls in September or August. We have no way of knowing. And if we change it to unit notified, that same agency, they ran. No, I've lost my agency. Let me go back in 07909. They submitted 55 calls in October, but they ran 450. These were submitted later at some point. So this is the true number of calls that were actually run. They just weren't submitted in that month. They were submitted at a later date and populated for this month. There's something to know about this. Now I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, and I'm going to remove all of these drill downs and show you something else. Actually, not removing those. Sorry, I just wanted to remove the agency. So all we've got now is for the entire state for 2 years, all of 2024 and 2025. Let's look at that. What can we do with this? Well, we can do something really cool. I will, when this report exports, for some reason, those two blocks are joined. So it helps if you just remove these two rows. It's one of the reasons why I'm in the habit of doing that. So I'm going to select this. Don't select the total. Insert. Line. This is a very easy way to look for missing data or missing months. It's a little bit hard to just look at the numbers and just see, but when you look at a line, you can see, wait, the month of February seems a little bit low. Oh, wait, there's only 28 days in February, so that makes sense. And then November's low. So in November of 25, we had 188,010 calls. Let's look at November 24, 185,442. Oh, so it's not low. It's actually a little bit higher than we anticipated. But this way, it's just a really quick, that took me 20 seconds to create this little line graph, and it's really easy. But this is a really easy way to tell, and you can do this with agencies. You can set up a Power Pivot graph to do it so that you can look agency by agency and just see if there's a sudden drop off. And that's what you're looking for, is sudden gaps that are not explainable by, February has, fewer days than November. Or if you have an agency that works for a university, well, of course, their call volume is going to drop dramatically during the summer. Or if an EMS agency is in Aspen, Colorado, of course, their call volume is going to be higher in the winter when their skiers are there. So you look for patterns that you can't explain, and those are the ones you investigate further, and that's when you find your missing data. So I'm going to close this Excel. I'll save it just to say yes. I'll save this. James, I'll send this to you later if you'd like. Save that. And these are the two that I really wanted to show you because they are the most useful in finding missing data. The other thing that I really suggest you do is you run the same report and you get that Excel file that I just showed you with the agency level by month. And then you run that same report within your receive and process vendor report writer and compare the numbers. If for the month of December, your report writer says you sent us 200,000 calls, but when you look at our system and we only received 180, something's going on. And that's when you can reach out to me or someone on our team, and we can try to investigate and with you to figure out why we're 20,000 records short. Because NEMSIS has no idea that we're missing those calls if they didn't fail on our end. If they did fail, we would know, and we would probably have already reached out to you. But if you think you've submitted them and we haven't gotten them, we'll never reach out because we didn't know we weren't supposed to get them. So that's something that you can do as a data manager proactively every month or quarter, just to make sure that we're on the same page with you and we're not scrambling on February the 10th because the research database closes on February 13th and you're trying to export us 400,000 calls that were missed because of an error in your export file that said not to send over so many files per day. That's not a real one. That's just one I just made up. But you understand what I'm saying. So that's the main thing that I wanted to show you. We're a little bit ahead of time, but I would be happy to answer any questions or see any comments you'd like to make of any other ideas that you have that I may have missed. I see one question. Oh, sorry, Judy, about the volume. Again, there's nothing I could do about that. I was assuming I would have at least a couple questions or comments. Another thing, I will be happy to share my PowerPoint. I will share a version of it without the voiceover and without the infographics. I will be sharing the bullet point version just because that's the one that you will be able to edit and make yours. The infographic version is very hard to edit, but it is available. And if you'd like it, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll send it to you at any time. And this is being recorded and Chris will post it as soon as he edits out all of my verbal snafus, I hope.
Just a reminder for everybody, if you do want to ask a question here, make use of the question and answer section in Zoom. While people are thinking about, or if you have a question that is a little bit more complicated, then can go in the Q&A, raise your hand, and we can get you unmuted there. But John, I was going to ask, what do you have like a success story that someone who's did something in particular and found like and found a good workaround, or something that might get people on the you got over a whole bunch of things people could already do, but do you have like a good example of one that someone did?
Using what we were just talking about, the analyzing the state by agency and then meeting with state data managers. There's not just one, there's several, but for last year's data set, between the month of November and when we closed it it ended up being a little bit after February because of a technical problem. What we were doing exactly what I showed people today. We got an extra, clearly definable 750,000, but more than likely, we think we gathered more than 1 million extra records to help us go over the 60 million mark last year for the first time. And that was due to meeting with state data managers and doing exactly what I just showed you, downloading it by agency with the little conditional highlighting, and then going agency by agency and looking for patterns that are not clearly distinct, and then reaching out to those agencies and having them resubmitted. I hate to point out states in particular, but I will give Pennsylvania kudos. They submitted more than 250,000 records as part of that program last year. Texas this year is going to be submitting at least another 300,000. And there's been several other really big finds that we've been very happy about. I hate to call states out, even though it's a good thing, but last year there was at least 6 states that really were able to recover a lot of records. Those 6 states alone recovered 750,000 records.
Kudos to them. That's awesome. Looks like that everybody's kind of got their questions in here and such. I'll remind everyone also that you mentioned that about like how the completeness affects the downstream use for researchers and for the data set. And I want to remind everybody that we do send out a monthly activity report, which has sets of these in there where we talk about the different and highlight and give you links to research that's being done with NEMSIS data. And we also have a new feature that's coming out every month that is the monthly data research highlight. We've had folks ask us to create a deliverable that people could actually like print out and share easily as a PDF. So if you watch for the NEMSIS monthly report, or the monthly report and the monthly data highlight, that's 2 places where you can look and you can see where all the hard work that everyone is putting into the data set actually gets put into use in different places. So I just wanted to remind people about that and give anybody else a little bit more of a chance in case they wanted to ask a question. But I think we've got everyone covered for today. Yeah, so big virtual round of applause for John. Thank you for taking the time today, and very cool use of modern technology to help you out there. I hope you feel better soon. As a reminder, take a moment and make sure anybody else who that is in your office or that you think would be interested in updates from the NEMSIS TAC to get them to sign up for the mailing list. Use the Open a Help Desk ticket at the bottom of the homepage at nemsis.org, and then you'll get all of the updates for this and our V3 calls. The first information about the annual meeting, which the date announcement will be coming out very soon through that mailing list, and also through all of our social medias. If you go to any popular social media site, look up NEMSIS TAC, and you'll find us there, and you can sign up and get the latest information on whatever platform you would like. With that, I will say goodbye for today. Thank you so much. Keep an eye out. We do this every month, and so during the next V3 call, you'll see and keep an eye out on your email for what the next public training is going to be. Thank you so much, John, and thanks everybody. Hope you have a great day.
Take care.